Hello, I'm Paul Dussault. In this video, I will recreate a painting by John Singer Sargent. Sargent has taken his place in art history as one of the very greatest of portrait painters. His method is very direct and bold, achieving highly illusionistic effects through dramatic light and shadow and an extremely rigorous application of paint. The painting I will copy is Sargent's portrait of the painter William Merritt Chase, which hangs in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. I start by stretching a canvas the same dimensions as the original, 62 by 41 inches. Here, I apply a layer of gray acrylic gesso to imitate the gray ground Sargent often used. I apply large quantities of paint to the palette, since I plan to use the paint indulgently. I will be using just 5 colors: white, ivory black, transparent oxide red, English red, and Indian red. The first step is to place the figure in the rectangle of the canvas. I use a stick of charcoal to locate the 4 dominant light masses of the head, shirt front, and 2 hands. To begin painting, I mix the ivory black and transparent oxide red to create a sepia color, which I will use to draw with and mass in the darks of the background, coat, and trousers. It is important to describe the direction of the light in the painting as soon as possible, so I mass in the shadow side of the face and any parts of the head that are darker than the gray ground. With the tonal illusion blocked in, I begin to paint opaquely with large passages addressed first. The objective is to paint broadly and luxuriously, with the largest brush possible and loading the paint in an almost reckless manner. The lights in the face are mostly transparent oxide red and white, with adjustments of light red when I want the color to be warmer, and black when I want to neutralize the color. Having established the breadth of the light mass in the flesh, I add black to my mixtures to achieve the transition towards shadow. The shirt collar is the brightest light in the painting. I need to have it present now to act as a reference when describing the other lights. These warm grays in the beard provide a beautiful complement to the flesh colors. The ear sits back in a slight shadow and is the warmest feature in the head. These dark accents cause the lights to appear brighter. At this stage, the eye is abbreviated with a single stroke of color. Ever more facets of description are discovered. The idea is to describe the exact nature of the light and the complexion of the subject. Description of color in the light mass is the first concern. The shadows are still being maintained by the original sepia drawing. The dark warm grays in the hair begin to connect the head to the surrounding darkness. These brightest lights on the forehead cause the colors at the top of the head to fall into a half light, creating the illusion of the figure emerging from the shadows. With the head and shirt front broadly described, I begin the hand nearest to the light source. The hand is conceived of as a single form, which is then subdivided to create the fingers. The next light mass to address is the left hand and palate. After establishing all the lights with opaque color, I deepen all the darks with more sepia. With the relationship of the light mass to the enveloping darkness fully resolved, I can begin the smaller facets of description. This highlight on the forehead is the keystone of the entire lighting effect. John Singer Sargent was born in 1856 in Florence, Italy. His parents were American expatriates. At the age of 17, Sargent began his formal artistic training in Paris under the fashionable portrait painter Carolus Duran. This homage portrait of Carolus Duran was painted by Sargent at the age of 23. Carolus Duran's teaching emphasized painting directly onto the canvas without preparatory drawing or underpainting. The idol of he and his students was 17th century Spanish master Diego Velázquez. Velázquez's genius was using paint to express pure visual perception. One of Sargent's earliest attempts to distinguish himself was scorched by scandal over this dramatic portrait, later known as Madame X. When displayed at the Paris Salon, the painting was attacked as decadent and lewd. Sargent considered it one of his best efforts and displayed the picture proudly in his studio for many years, until selling it to the Metropolitan Museum in 1916. Largely as a result of this episode, Sargent moved to London, where he lived for the rest of his life. Although lacking a formal education, Sargent was very culturally sophisticated. He spoke several languages fluently and was a very knowledgeable and accomplished musician. We can see this urbane, cosmopolitan character in his portraits. The paintings are more expressive of the artist than they are of the subject. Over his extremely successful career, Sargent executed hundreds of portraits, both painted and later drawn. Interestingly, Sargent had many critics during his career, and especially in the period between his death and the 1950s. These critics were dismissive of Sargent's work largely because of its content. Wealthy people who were seen to be aggrandizing themselves and luxuriating in their wealth through Sargent's portrayals. The comments of these critics now seem petty. In recent decades, the paintings of John Singer Sargent are considered by both artists and non-artists as works of genius. A week has passed and the painting has thoroughly dried. I begin the second session by moistening the entire canvas with my medium. This oiling out refreshes the darks which have dried matte. After blocking in the cool, dark grays of the pants, I once again deepen the enveloping darkness. Next, the jacket is described with solid color. These long, broad strokes of cool dark provide an aesthetic complement to the smaller passages and the warm lights. These dark copper passages immediately warm the entire painting. In this session, I will reverse my process of the first session, starting with the palette hand, then moving to the right hand, and finishing with the head, which is the painting's primary subject. This moment of emerald green is a color note found in many of Sargent's portraits. I return to the right hand by bringing the dark background tangent to the fingers, which creates the tension of the hand in space. The grace of the hand poses is a hallmark of Sargent's portraits, emblematic of the artist's urbane sophistication. In preparation to complete the head, I scrub a nearly invisible transparency of ivory black over the entire head. Here I reconfirm the darkest shadows with my transparent sepia. It is finally time to paint the dramatic black accent of the ribbon attached to the glasses, which greatly affects the entire character and personality of the subject. The addition of the ribbon causes me to reassess the bright lights that surround it. In this very direct method of analysis and painting, every stroke boldly and decisively marches the picture forward. Each feature is looked at as an opportunity for personal brush calligraphy and expressiveness. The mirror lights in the eyes crystallize the final description of the light source and add wetness to the texture of the eye. All that's left is the completion of the shirt front and Merritt Chase's brooch, another moment of Sargent's favorite emerald green. Voila.